Good afternoon, friends. Good afternoon from Ottawa. Um, Welcome to our Circle for Nations Fall Equinox Eco Peace event conducted on live on Facebook. Uh, for those of you who recall our many gatherings both on the land, on the water, and more recently at the Public Service Commission building, will know it's quite a switch now for us to be actually doing our circle gathering online. Um, I've lit the smudge that Grandfather Commander generally lit to open all his meetings to cleanse our minds and our thoughts and to bring us all together with the energy of spirit that his ancestors honored and welcomed and invited to guide their thinking and their idea sharing during all their meetings and gatherings. With all our Circle of All Nations events, we have relied on that uh, particular energy, which we see as different really from a religious energy. It's really reaching the hearts and minds and spirits, emotions of diverse peoples through that particular thread of spirit connection that the indigenous uh, prayer, which incorporates the smoke, the smudge, uh, imbues. And as grandfather did, he brushed the smoke uh, around people to keep them in a protection, a circle of protection, and to inspire the highest thinking and the highest sharing. He generally brushed his lips with the sacred feather to ensure that he was sharing the best words. It's a challenge as a non-indigenous peoples to share all of that, but we do because it has strengthened our own work tremendously. And here we go. Um, uh, Today is exactly a year since the September fall equinox meeting that we hosted at the time of the great tornado that swept the Ottawa River and impacted even our workshop uh, on Gilmore. And today we're remembering that and many other things. Some of you may have seen our agenda and will know what we're doing today. I pretty well have a PowerPoint presentation that I shall be following, which will also serve as the record of our meeting and will also in time include the inputs of some of our very, very special guests today. So with respect to the prayer for the event, of course, we are acknowledging the fall equinox, and the equinox reminds us about how important the cosmic world was to indigenous peoples, how they taught us really about the importance of the cyclical rhythms of nature. And so in our prayer, we always acknowledge um, first the great big timekeepers, Tibikisis, the grandmother moon, Kichi Tibikisis, the grandfather sun, and Kishi Shoshoaki, Mother Earth. These, as indigenous peoples knew, were the timekeepers and markers of space and place that guided life and guided all life on Earth. They were also very cognizant of the direction of the east, the south, the west, and the north in this cyclical cosmic motional process, and in time associated much thinking around those directional concepts. So we remember and acknowledge and have learned tremendously from those concepts. We also acknowledge then the equinox and the solstice, which were great markers in the indigenous calendar, and the eclipses. And today, of course, is a particularly special moment. It's a moment of balance when we have equal day and equal night. And it's something that more and more of us are becoming conscious of. And of course, in addition to the messages of the earth, indigenous peoples extracted messages to guide life. And of course, the critical message of today is balance. And in a world that is really, really worrisome because it is so out of kilter in so many ways, many of us need to think deeply, deeply about this notion. So with that, then I will just move on to our formal program. At the beginning, I shall just share a few thoughts about the Circle of All Nations and Grandfather Commander. Um, Many of you will already know about this, but some of our newer friends actually were grateful that I shared a little bit last time. And so actually I realized that there are many new folk who are joining us, and perhaps some folk who don't know Grandfather Commander and his Circle of All Nations work so well. So really next time, November 11th, we will be doing a full presentation on Grandfather Commander. But for today, we're moving on to our eco-peace agenda. So, the Circle of All Nations and Culture of Peace is the inspiration and legacy work of Grandfather Commander, commenced really in his approach to people and life over many, many decades, formally introduced in the late 60s, 67, 69, rearticulated in the fashion that you see now since 2000, more or less. And so we extract the acronym CAN TEACH from our efforts with the Circle of All Nations. And for the last 2 decades, we've been formally engaged in training, education, advocacy, communications, and healing. This is the 21st Equinox Peace event that Circle of All Nations has hosted in the National Capital Region. Some of you may recall joining us at Darcy McGee High School many, many years ago when we first attempted to draw together themes of environment and race and racial issues and racial tensions, racial harmony in the Wolf Project initiative, lighting candles for a culture of peace. And that was when we first actually gave people this t-shirt. We gave away hundreds of t-shirts to people to inspire them in this direction of creating a circle of all nations, a culture of peace. So here we go. This is basically our agenda for the day. We're sharing live from the National Capital Region, and we're going global. We're honoring the fall equinox, the United Nations International Day of Peace, and the City of Ottawa's efforts to promote peace too. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Our agenda goes from the 8th fire equinox tornadoes of September 21st, 2019, to the August 3rd tropical storm Isaias, and we contemplate what the laws of nature are saying about balance. And we're including in a little while a special message, a Grandfather Commander message. We have later a special guest from Argentina, Circle of All Nations colleague and friend Dr. Graciela Janowski, president of FANCIEV, the Fundación Argentina a la Nación Camino a la Verdad, an NGO with special consultative status with the UN ECOSOC Committee, and Circle of All Nations represented this organization at the COP17 United Nations Conference for Earth in South Africa. Later, we'll also be talking to a very special person regarding our eco-peace combination idea, animating the Circle of All Nations Paddle for Peace theme with a very special video about the roots of Grandfather Commander's canoe-making adventure in Denmark. Here, our special guest and circle friend, Winnie Larsen from Denmark, sent us a marvelous gift last year. She tracked down and interviewed the former director of the Roskilde Viking Ship Museum, Jan Scamby Masden, and his colleagues, and sent us videos, photographs, and memories of when Jan had flown to Ottawa to track William Commander down and convince him and his wife Mary to go to Denmark and build a birch bark queen there in 1981. Then, Circle of All Nations will be pleased to be introduced to you our friend Sarah Lucero, a friend and special guest from New Mexico. She came to share wampum passion with Grandfather Commander more than a decade ago, and also brought us a documentary on Chaco Canyon. And as you may know, time and space converge in the knowledge and rock of that ancient site. So it is very special for us to have her join us on this equinox. Circle of All Nations is also pleased to join colleagues to celebrate the 14th annual Ottawa Peace Festival 2020, Festival de la Paix d'Ottawa. And we shall also screen a little video of Grandfather Commander talking to Jean Trudel, who is with the Cirque de Paix and who's taken some of the peace messages from Grandfather Commander and his gatherings to the United Nations and elsewhere. Let's see. And so here is a photograph of Grandfather Commander with really lines that have inspired many of us over the years. His conviction that we must all come together with one heart, one mind, one love, and one determination to create a circle of all nations, a culture of peace. It seems that this message is even more critically important as the days go. Grandfather Commander was the carrier of the sacred wampum belts of the Algonquin people of the eastern seaboard. They were the original creators of the wampum belts, created really in unknown ways through the use of the quahog shell, created way before the age of industrialization and creation of beads. Grandfather Commander was the carrier of the Seven Fires Prophecy Bell, with its core message of choice making. The 1700s peace sharing belt, the welcoming belt of the Algonquin people, who, on behalf of all the peoples of North America, welcomed the newcomers who arrived on the eastern seaboard. And the Jake Treaty border crossing belt, in essence, a belt about borderlessness, because William Commander and his people believed they belonged to Turtle Island. It spanned Canada and the United States, and so that spirit of belonging and borderlessness was really another core underlying theme behind this historic belt. And the message of that belt has come alive to the global world with the coronavirus pandemic. And so we gradually begin to understand the depths to indigenous knowledge such as William Commander articulated. He moved from being a kindergarten dropout, and I was showing you earlier our book that we wrote in 2005. And I was really showing it so that the initial screening of this video would include actually the book's face. over the past few months, we've been engaging in live video creation on Facebook, and we've had a very helpful student, April, who's helped us put labels on the documentaries. But we weren't able to get to doing that yet for last week's video presentation on the Donald Marshall Jr. story. And so I really would like to see that book face as the cover till we get to do the formal Circle of All Nations labeling. Anyway, um, Grandfather Commander described himself as a kindergarten dropout, though he was actually uh, a most learned person who, as an adult, learned to read and write English, and as some of us know, read every book in his massive library, underlined things that were important to him, and so was a really an impressive, inspirational historian and thinker. Um, um, and so we like to say after we wrote that book, he was presented with the honorary degree by the University of Ottawa, an honorary PhD. Later, he received the degree for causa honorific by the Quebec Outaouais University, and and over the past several years, I've actually researched him to try and understand better what he was trying to teach us, and to transmit that message to more and more people. And so we consider him also a researched PhD. And again, as I say, our Circle of All Nations mantra is training, education, advocacy, communications, and healing. The Circle of All Nations is the vision and work of Elder Commander over the past 50 years. It is not an organization or a network with any formal infrastructure. Rather, it's a global eco-community. And its priorities are respect for Mother Earth and peace building. It's a vision for diversity and unity. It's a vision for harmony based on the values of respect, responsibility, forgiveness, love, and compassion. And it's focused on honoring and developing one's individual strengths and gifts, and contributing to the strengths of the community. This is a birch bark basket that Grandfather Commander liked to keep his tobacco in. And it captures the core theme of the Circle of All Nations work and of his own life and vision, that the journey continues. And the canoe is the symbol to us of that journey, the journey of life. So I mentioned earlier then the eighth fire tornado that transformed our lives for so long in the capital city exactly a year ago. We were only able to manage our own meeting uh, at the public service building with great care, because many of their services were already shut down with that tornado. And we moved from the eighth fire tornadoes to the August 3rd, 2020 tropical storm Isaias. And I write, what are the laws of nature saying about balance? And I'm wanting now to read you something that that I had been wondering about sharing for some time now. Let me find my. I call this paper, this thing that I'm now going to read to you, Isaias. They gave me this name. And it's a reflection on what William Commander shared on the 30th of July, 2011. On August 3rd, 2020, the ninth anniversary since the passing of Elder William Commander, I heard for the third time a name that sounded vaguely familiar on the radio. And finally, I paid attention. Radio announcers were warning of the arrival of tropical storm Isaias. As I listened to the unusual name, I was transported back in time to a few days before grandfather died. Why? Because I had heard that name before. I went racing back to my old journals. On the 30th of August, 2011, 5:44 is the precise time of my journal entry, I had noted that grandfather had awakened in the early morning and was praying. When he finished, he told me they gave me a name, Asaya, something like that. He went back to sleep. When he awakened later, he repeated this message. We researched the name and it appeared Hebrew. On August 15th, 2011, I consulted with a friend about it. Jasmine was a woman of Swiss ancestry who was living in Prince Edward Island at the time that she connected with us, partly because she was interested in our kindergarten dropout book. Later, she actually came and met us here in Ottawa. She came to our summer solstice event on Victoria Island. As it works out, she also was acquainted with the work of Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa, and she is also a member of the Oroville community in India. We kept contact over the years, and at this point, I wrote to her about this name. I said, does the word Asayas or something like that ring any bells for you? In a December 6th, 2011 conversation, we again touched on that name, Asayas. And we both could only come up with the fact that it appeared to be a surname common in the Philippines, India, and Israel. Here in Israel, being a boy's name, meaning created by God in Hebrew. In a vague way, I thought, if there is resurrection, a reincarnation, perhaps a child called Asayas will be born in the future, and maybe in that troubled place in the Middle East. I'm Capricorn and sort of very practical in my thinking, so I didn't really know how to move further with that thought. I just let it be. However, on August 3rd, 2020, I realized that Isaias was actually the proper spelling of the name that they had given William Commander. As I researched Isaias anew, I noted that it was associated with the prophet, prophecy, and salvation. I was not sure what to do with this wake-up message on August 3rd, 2020. Since then, environmental and racial tensions have only continued to skyrocket. I've just decided to share this reflection with you today at our Equinox event after some little discussions with a few friends. It seems to me that this thought that I'm reflecting on is not really meant only for my own reflection. As you know, William Commander was carrier of the Seven Fires prophecy, and many believed him to be the carrier of the prophecy of the unfolding of the seventh message, the time for critical choice making about the ongoing destruction of Mother Earth and all her creation, including human. And for easily 50 years, these have been the core elements of his public outreach campaign: respect for Mother Earth and peace amongst people. Locally, non-stop till his death. Nationally, for example, with the 1987 Aboriginal Constitutional Conference discussions, and globally, for example, at the pre-Rio Earth Conference deliberations in France in 1991. Just about everybody who knew him knows just how passionately and hard he worked to deliver the Wampa messages of his ancestors, and in particular, the warnings of the Seven Fire prophecy. Many times we'd have guests here, and either he would talk about the prophecies, or he'd use a text to teach them the storyline of the thread. When we went to South Africa, he shared the message of the Seven Fire prophecy with the Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa. And he said, you don't have to tell us. We have that prophecy amongst our peoples as well. On September 21st, 2019, the day of our last Circle of All Nations fall event and our last physical gathering, the 8th fire tornado touched down on both sides of his ancestral river, the Kitchissippi, the Ottawa, originally their highway, but since historical colonial times to the present, the mechanism to divide his Algonquin peoples. The world has shifted irrevocably since then. Many folk will recall that on his last June 21st, 2011 visit to Victoria Island, William Commander spoke only Algonquin, and as if only to the land. By this time in his life, he despaired that people had really understood his warnings and his message of hope in his Asanabka vision for the sacred Chaldea site. He said to me that it would only be when nature herself intervened that change would come. There are too many important global events to recall here, including ones where the indigenous voice has been rising in urgency: Hawaii, Standing Rock, Wet'suwet'en, Australia, South America, Chaco Canyon, and at Chaldea, in 2014. The ancient ones could be heard as archaeological artifacts 8,000 years old. Pardon me, let me do this again. And at Chaldea in 2014, the ancient ones could be heard as archaeological artifacts 8,000 years old, affirmed the critical importance of the area as a gathering place of the Paleolithic people. In 2017, there was the unprecedented flooding of the Ottawa River, then the shutting down of the Chaudière Bridge, the unbearably painful Ottawa winter of 2019, the 2019 flooding along the river, including at Oka, and then the 2019 fall equinox tornadoes, accompanied by dramatic political shifts, particularly in the hydro regime. Since then, Indigenous peoples have been extricated from Victoria Island, and no fires such as William Commander ignited there from the 80s on burn anymore. There's no Indigenous honoring of ancient sacred site, and there are no Paddle for Peace events there either. Over the past year, there has in fact been dramatic escalation in climate change, extreme weather, the extinction march of countless species from the bottom of the oceans to the top of the chain of life, and at this moment, fires burn in the west and cloud skies in the east, and in the middle, birds fall dead by the thousands. The global coronavirus pandemic that marks human as part of this trajectory of change in this age of global communications, Um, with this, the crisis escalates at unfathomable levels, and leadership is ill equipped to cope. Despite many valiant efforts, the world is now anticipating a second COVID wave. Indigenous folk might say that Mother Earth is now deeply engaged in a process of cleansing, such as William Commander talked about so passionately to us with his last breath. Isaias is the critically important marker of our times, times of prophecy indeed. We have such limited capacity to think through these complexities, even as the world thinks together. We surely need some other orientation into knowledge and wisdom beyond what the dominant articulation presents us with. I remember with even greater clarity now how William Commander always identified himself as a child of Mother Earth. We all are, in fact, and Mother Earth is our penultimate nurturer. We are part of her evolution. Dramatic culture shift is critical. Gina Way Daganuk. I am playing this musical video that was created by my nephew, Jade Sawyer, and Trishi Vera in 2011. December 8th actually is when it was released, on the eve of the COP17 conference in Durban. Okay, well, please excuse me for that. I unfortunately, okay, I see my friend is delayed. Uh, yeah, please excuse me for that. I unfortunately am so accustomed to checking my Facebook messages all the time that I unfortunately lost my music video, and I shall show it, screen it again at the end of the session. I'm now going to go to a message from Grandfather Commander before we get to our next guest. She's a little delayed, our friend Gracela from Argentina. And so we will share something that I'd wanted to show in the context of William Commander's knowledge of the history. No, that is not it. That is not it. Let me. I had wanted to share that. Really, I hadn't actually planned to today because I did show it to us last week when we talked about the Donald Marshall story. We talked about the history that indigenous peoples have been conscious of and living with, the painful history that they've been living with over the years. And I wanted to screen that musical. William's friend Kevin Chief was instrumental in creating that music with his colleagues, taking words that had been recorded at some of William's gatherings and translating it into a song, a beat that continues. But I mention it because last night one of my friends called me, Carolyn, called me to tell me about the uh, uprising of energies with the fishing disputes in Digby, Nova Scotia. So tensions are again running high regarding environmental issues, regarding fishing, regarding Indigenous rights, regarding the Marshall ruling, and yeah, uh, another moment for us to be looking for transformation in history. So, yes, from the tropical storm to the tropical cyclone, which actually happened on September 13th, which was Donald Marshall's birthday, to, uh, to us today. Um, okay, I am now actually going to see if I can get my friend from Denmark on with us, and we'll go back to our friends from Argentina in a little while. So give me a moment while you contemplate this, a photograph of Queen Margarita meeting and greeting uh, the Algonquin chief William Commander and his wife Mary during their visit in Denmark. Let me go now to this page and let me see if I can invite in Winnie. I do hope, oh, she's not reachable right now. Let's hope something will in fact manifest. Uh, Send her a message. And let's leave it at that for now. Okay, so yeah, bear with us, friends, as we manage technology, or we don't manage so well. Um, I'm going to hopefully get her on with us. She's most excited to come and share with us. And I don't really want to tell you very much about her, except that we will be talking to Winnie live in Denmark. And alongside this, you see a photo she just recently posted on Facebook. Oh, well, there she is. Jeez. Calling. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, well, there you are. Well, so this way I don't steal all the thunder by telling everybody all about you. But welcome to our show, Winnie. Such a pleasure to see you.
You too.
Okay. Well, this is really an exciting moment. My goodness, if William Command launched a canoe in Denmark, now you're just like returning all the energies right back to us here in North America.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
pleasure.
Okay. So just let's tell people about how we met.
Yes, or maybe you will do that.
Well, what year was it that you were actually here in Ottawa? Year
It
was that?
was it was the year I published this book here,
Oh,
and that was in
just hold it
2014.
still for a minute so people can see it because we're a little bit fuzzy. Okay.
Mhm.
Special, a very special
And
book, and it's very deep part of your work. Yes.
yes, so and I did visit Canada, and we were the one I did visit and we were out on a sweetgrass picnic with Big Bear,
With Big Bear, with
and
Ron Goddard, Big Bear. Yes, indeed. A person who
yes,
actually used to collect sweetgrass and make big bundles of sweetgrass braids for grandfather and many elders who used to host the solstice uh, Circle of All Nations prayer on Victoria Island year after year after year. Year after year, they would uh, be sitting in the hot sun to acknowledge this important moment in the Earth cycle, the solstice. Here today, we're talking about the equinox, but it was Ron who used to bring many special gifts of sweetgrass braids to the elders on Victoria Island, just by way of introduction to Ron. But carry on, yes. So that's when we met, purely by chance.
and I saw you, and when I saw you, I had that feeling about that I should go and have a conversation with you. But I was Danish, standing there out in the middle of nothing, so to speak, and but I just had that feeling about that I should be in touch with you, and then we had a conversation that day, um, which was a pleasure, and it was about that William had been in Denmark, and yeah, and one word took the other, and then it happened that I could pass on some information from your people to the one you name as the Viking Queen.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, and that was a huge surprise for me that that is her name in Canada. But yeah, that was the day we met. Mhm.
Yeah, it was pretty special. It's pretty unusual because that was actually the first time I had joined Big Bear and his friends on this medicine walk, really, to collect the sweet grass. And sad to say, now he's no longer able to do this tremendously important thing. Earlier, I was lighting sage, and I was didn't exactly explain, but that is one of the four sacred herbs to Native people. But sweetgrass is the other, as is cedar and as is tobacco. And I think it was Ron who shared a photograph of some sweetgrass that you had planted in Denmark, having taken
Yes.
some seeds. But yeah, so that was a very special moment, and I recall then giving you a copy of our Learning from a Kindergarten Dropout book to deliver to your queen, which you in
Yes.
fact did. And it makes me remember how important that meeting with her was, for two reasons. For one, earlier, just before you came on, I was playing a presentation on William Commander's reflection on 500 years of history, and the changes that came into the lives of the native people with the coming of the newcomers. And so I was pointing out that he was really, really very attuned to his history. So when he met your queen, he asked her how many colonies she had. And she said, "Oh, none whatsoever. We used to have Groenland, but we've given it away. We've given it back." And William Commander said, "Oh, I wish you were my queen." And he was, in fact, yeah, exactly, implying he'd have his land back. He also liked the fact that she shook hands with him with no gloves. So
Yeah.
um, the relationship thing. And of course, I know she's an artist, she's a very personable leader. And you could see that William Commander also felt that special energy of that very special queen. And together with that came also for him very much a sense that he was respected, he was being respected for what he could do with his hands, for his knowledge. And it is that thread that we have continued with bringing the canoe into William Commander's formal thesis and education to show that there are other ways to knowing, other ways to knowledge that are critically important for us to understand. Of course, you with your horses and Shinto access one level of knowledge, but Queen Marguerite, uh, by acknowledging William's art and craft, also acknowledged a thread of knowledge, and that was very important to him. So thank you for uh, continuing with that part of the mission. But actually, last year, you moved on to yet another level of linkage with us. So tell us about that.
Yes, that was a very special journey. What happened was that I, in the springtime or early summer last year, I had a meditation where I felt that the universe was keep on bringing me a hint about that I should go and find the canoe that William made here in Denmark. And at that time in my life, I had a stalker, and that meant that I, on a personal level, was not very interested in going out at that time and meeting new people. So I had to, think about what to do now. But I could feel that there was a kind of an energy, floating into me and keep on telling me, this is the thing you should do. And after a while, I thought to myself, okay, now I'm ready to do this. And what happened was that, first of all, I should try to figure out of where this canoe now. And it took me out on a very long journey, but to keep it a little bit, to take the short version today, the first meeting I was going to was at the Viking Ship Museum in Roskilde. And on my way to that meeting with Søren, I heard spirits telling me something that did surprise me, and that was presentation are very important. And I thought to myself, okay, here, this is not what I'm very good at. And I thought to myself, okay, someone is trying to tell me something here, and I better have to remember this. But I was a little bit confused because I was on my way to a meeting with a man who already had accepted me. So I thought, that's strange that I have to know this, because I already have presented myself to him. And then I arrived at the Viking Ship Museum in Roskilde, and he told me some very funny things about that. Some things I share at my homepage tomorrow, but shortly he shared that a big box had showed up from nowhere, no one had seen it before, and that box had showed up when they were looking after things about from the time where William were at the Viking Ship Museum. So it was a big surprise for them to enter into the storage room and find this huge box. And the one who was looking into the storage room, she had a few days ago been cleaning up there, so she was kind of wondering, what the heck is this? And when she opened up the box, it was filled up with things about the time where William worked in Denmark. So that was a kind of a goosebump reaction everyone had, and it was like, oh my God, this is cool, you know? But when I was with Søren, he had told me that he would try to figure out where the canoe was and something about William, of course. And he said, oh, I don't know where the canoe are, but I know a person who might be able to share that with you. And his name is Jan. And if you want me to, I will take, phone him and ask if he want to meet you. And then I was, okay, cool. And I was waiting. And when he came back, so he said, when you meet Yen, I just want you to know that presentation are very important. because, when he wanted to present me for Yen, he could not really find the words because I had not presented myself and Yen had asked. So that was quite funny. And what was also very funny was that when I met Yen, one of the things he actually had been doing in his life, I shared this story with him, and he said one of the things that he had been doing in his work have been to place people by the side of our queen to train them in making a presentation about who they were and are and work with. So that was a kind of, okay, someone watching us here and everything is all right. But on my way to the meeting with Yen, I had that feeling about that I should pray for guidance about what should we talk about. It was my first meeting with him, and and on my way to him, some things happened, and at that point they did not make sense to me as much as they did to Yen when I shared them with him, but I was just going with the flow. And what happened I would like to share before we're going to the interview. First of all, at that time I did not know I knew William, but not very deep. So the stuff the teachings he did bring, and so on, there was a lot I had to learn as well. So on my way to Yen, I was driving on the road, and I was watching the time schedule, and then at one point I was told to leave the road, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I have arranged the meeting, what is this about? But I could feel inside, like when I felt that push for finding the canoe, I could feel that I'm supposed to do this. So I was listening and feeling, and I left the road. And when I did that, I was guided to a small road that led me to a huge forest. And I was wondering, this is something I have to pay attention to. This is something that Jan knows something about, but I do not know something about it. And I knew that it must have been something he had been doing together with William in one or the other way. So I was on that road, and then after a while I could stop, just breathe, and I was waiting for, getting more guidance. And then at one point I was told, now it's time to go back to the main road again. And I thought to myself, oh, that's good, time schedule. And when we came out to the main road, I was told that I should wait on the solar car on the right side had passed me, and I could see that car far away. It was a huge snow white car, and I was waiting. And that car came and passed me, and I was, told you can follow that one. And one thing was that the next 30 minutes, that car did lead me in the direction to Yen. Another thing was that on the back of that car, there were two names. And one of the names at the car was kind of popping up in my face. And I was wondering, I have to pay attention to that name. And the name was Hansen. And I thought to myself, Hansen. Okay, I don't know a person who's named Hansen, and Yen, his last name is not Hansen, so that was kind of interesting. And then when I came to Yen, right at time, standing in front of his door, he opened up his door, and that warm man was standing there and said, "You're welcome, you're here right on time," and all that kind of stuff. And then we had a conversation before the interview, which was about Yen. He asked, so do you have a clue about, do you think something about what we are going to talk about? And then I told him, there's something I would like to share with you. From today on my way out here, what happened, and I don't know if you can relate to it. And what actually was the thing was that then he could relate to it, because it brought up memories from the time he had with William, where William told him that relations are so important, and that Jan had told him that in Denmark the last name Hansen are a very normal used name. And at the time where he was in Canada, Jan, and together with William had told him, oh, I have heard about a man his name is Hansen, and he's and he said, we have to drive there, we have to go there. And him and Yen, they took a tour far away from the main road, out in a huge forest to find Hansen. And and it was kind of, this is just a little bit insight in what have happened for me on this journey. So for me, it had been a really heart-touching journey also to meet Yen, and the day where I met Yen, he was also showing me some snowshoes, snowshoes you use when there was snow, and the car I was driving after was white as snow, so there were so many signs. But what touched me a lot was also that, William, he was really a good-hearted man, so filled with humor and warmth, and the way Yen did respond and talked about him. You can see that in the video. So I'm just grateful for that I could do this work, and yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that special part to the story. Last time we were talking about how uh, William seems to still direct people on journeys. And you take a turn in the road and you're exposed to all sorts of new thoughts and ideas and new paths, in fact. Like sometimes dramatically different paths, like for me, but for many people. And yeah, so that is really neat. It's also very very special, that relationship, that warmth that William Commander felt with you folk in Denmark. Um, yeah, I talked about the Uitlanders. Uh, he remembered, taking, I guess, a ferry or a train to the outer limits of the land. He had very strong memories of the mermaid. I mean, she was intact in those days, and those kinds of things. But I know, I recall one time it was Jan's birthday, and It was a phone call to William's place in Maniwaki, and he engaged in a conversation to pass birthday greetings. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, at
sweet.
a celebration over there. So the relationship continued way beyond the 1981 encounter, and and I think there were times William thought that would be a neat place to go and live. I mean, he felt so at home. And I like it really very because in the story of North America, there's sort of like the initial story of the Vikings arriving here. And then with this reconnection, it's like a whole healing journey has been accomplished as we spiral into a new circuit. And really, it was so unexpected, your gift to us last September. And it was a frantic time for us because, uh, because we had this tornado. The way it worked out was I was anticipating my meeting. I was planning to cook all night because I generally feed the people at my my events. And I'd arrived home, the wind was whipping up, I had all my groceries, and then the power went out. And so, after a few hours of no power coming back, with only fortunately a flashlight from a torch that William had left me from, like, by that stage, 8 years ago, I was able to poke my way around my house. And then I realized I was only going to be able to cook at the meeting place the next day, so I just kind of slept actually in my atrium. And all night long, I watched the stars, I heard the wind, I watched the clouds. The next morning, I packed my car really early to head downtown. It was only on the radio then that I realized we were in the midst of like this tornado. and
Whoa.
and it was amazingly devastating because it went on both sides of the Ottawa River. Like it went in an S, and it dipped down in an S. So it was a dramatic earth moment, and that's when we received your videos a couple of days before, and I was planning to share that, and we did in fact share some. But then after that, we were pretty frantic because, like, there was a lot of disaster around Ottawa around that period. And then, of course, as you know, it's taken like two efforts to really eventually thank you guys properly for your outreach. So it's really a year later we are picking up on the thread. And what would be wonderful, really, is if we can organize a conversation with some of those colleagues, maybe Big Bear as well, and do such a live video focused on that.
Yeah, that could be nice.
Yes. So I wonder, is this a good moment to show at least a portion of the the first video that you did on Yan, to whet people's appetite so that they can understand some of the energy of this relationship, and of
Yeah.
course our point that the journey continues, and you
Yes.
are making so much of it come live to us. It's really times of global connection in terms of the times and in terms of the place and space. Do you have anything more you'd like to share at this point, Winnie?
Um, mm, yes, one thing. It felt like at the time where I got those hints about finding the canoe, it felt like I was kind of standing in a storm, me myself, and it was the kind of that I should get back in my own canoe and get into flow again. And this journey, meeting those people here and sharing and getting all those informations from spirit world and proofs about that they would, I could use them, and it was a very strong experience. And what I would like to just share before we show the video with Yen, the first part of it, is that the day where I finally found the canoe, You know, it was took a while because the canoe was actually lost. Um, but the day where I found it, I realized, oh my God, the name of the tribe William are from, that name was so close to my birth name.
Oh,
Yeah. So it was a kind of, those hints there and me getting back on, my path and feeling centered and feeling well and meeting good people. It was like that I came out of the box, so to speak. And then I saw that canoe, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I just really have to learn more about William Commander and the work he did. And I'm so grateful for that we are here and sharing this and that you can use the things I passed on to you and the way you have received it. And yeah, so thanks to you and all your people there. And yeah,
well,
really.
well, thank you. And I mean, I know you mentioned journey, and I know horse and horse energy and horse healing, a critical part of your journey. And of course, horse to us is that notion of movement. And it feels to me like even with our circle work, even as everything is a challenge, so the momentum is now uh, building, and our horse is getting ready to move. Our canoe is
Yes.
getting ready to move again. And of course, one of the things we talked about was some of the last stages of my academic work with William and in this postdoctoral study where I'm creating a cybercartographic digital atlas, which in essence is digital storytelling by the inclusion of photos and videos, locational, place marked storytelling, place based storytelling, and hopefully some of what we're sharing now will become an important part of the William work. Um, we have that canoe video, and our friend Valerie, who created it for us, uh, called it like good enough for two. And really, it's like that journey where we need to become good enough for two and keep moving is part of the seed that William planted in so many of us. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to perhaps another discussion with just our group. So we could do a Facebook Live, but with the group around us, and you could talk a little bit more about your actual own work, and then lead to the next stages. So hopefully our horse is not moving as slow as our mail delivery and our email deliveries, but picking up speed now, and we look forward to the ongoing connection.
Yes, we
Oh,
do so. Shinsu, by the way, Shinsu, this is my master,
yes.
He became his student in 1998, and he taught me about going with the wind, and listening to the wind. And today I was reading the book from William, about William. There was a lot about the wind, and he taught me about how important it is to work from the heart, because in the heart we are all connected, and it doesn't matter if we are born in a body of a pony or whatever, or what color our skin are, we are all connected. This journey, this was really showing me, oh my God, on the other side of the world, some people are working for something and like only have raw informations about so many things, so singular. So it's a kind of, really heart touching for me to feel this. And that was enough for me today.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Then I'm now going to show a portion of the first video. Of course, we know we've got more materials. I probably will have to stop it before I do the whole 15 minutes. Um, but we'll pick up, and even if we're not able to gather all the colleagues, at a particular moment, you and I can continue this discussion some other moment and talk about it in greater length, and maybe we can show some of those photographs that you sent us as well. Okay, so let's. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from over there. What time is it
Thank
for
you.
you?
It's around 8 o'clock
In the
in the
evening.
evening.
Okay, not
Yeah.
bad, not bad. Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Mwah.
you. Okay,
Thank you for today.
okay. So I think we'll hang up then, and I'll go on to the video. Or do you want to stay? No, there's no need for you to stay on the line, really. If there's
No,
any need, I'll call you back.
you're welcome.
Okay, take care. Lots of love. Bye
You
bye.
too. Lots of love
Bye.
to you too. Bye.
My name is Jens Gamby Madsen, and I'm an archaeologist, and I'm former director of the Viking Ship Museum in Roskilde, also former director of the Movebo Museum in Aarhus. And we are in Denmark, I suppose you know. Yeah? And I'm going to tell how I met William Commander in 1981. I was at the Viking Ship Museum at that time, and we were very interested in trying to demonstrate how you build a birkbark canoe. And I contacted the National Museum of Man or Civilization. I think it was the last name it had, because the women were in opposition to that name, the National Museum of Man, so it became the National Museum of Civilization. And that's good, and I got some very good friends up there, colleagues, and I asked them, do you know? The one I asked was, his name was Gus Taylor, and I asked him, do you know if there's still Indians in Canada that can build a birkbark canoe? And maybe we could get them to go to Denmark and demonstrate their skills. And he said that William Commander and his wife, Mary, they were very good big birkbark builders, and they gave me his phone number and his address, and I tried to phone him and to write to him, but he never answered. So in the end I thought I better go up there and ask them eye to eye if they would like to come to Denmark. And so I did. I went to Canada, I went to Ottawa, and from there to Maniwaki, and from Maniwaki out in the reserve. The address of his house was Itobi Road. I remember that. Don't remember the number. And I arrived, it was in January 1981, and it was freezing quite a lot, 18 degrees. And I came to the house and knocked on the door, and nobody was there. And I thought maybe they are not at home at all, and I have traveled a long way for nothing. But I sat down and started to be very cold, and then suddenly William appeared and came to me. He came down from the wood, from the bush, and I told him who I was, and he looked very serious at me because I had not been invited, and I had done some silly faults to begin with. I had to bring some gifts, so I bought a bottle of whiskey, and we had some very good, very beautiful glass beds from the Viking Age, copies of course. And I'd taken them with me too. And I gave the gifts to William, and he said to me, I'll never forget it, I think we have tried this before, whiskey and glass beds. That was a very bad start. So we sat there and it was getting colder and colder, and then Mary came along too, and she said, don't you want to get into where it's a little bit more warm than sitting out here? And so we went in, and from there on we in some way or another started to like each other very much, actually. Yeah? And I got She made food for us, beaver tail that she cooked, a delicious meal. And then we started talking together. And I had been told that I should get a hotel room in Maniwaki because they would probably not have me staying with them, sleeping there in their house. But I hadn't done that. But I was there the whole day, and we talked and talked. And of course, the purpose of my visit was to convince him to go to, and Mary to go to Roskilde, to the Viking Ship Museum, and show and to demonstrate how to build a big-back canoe. It got very late, and then suddenly they asked me if I had a place to sleep, and I said no, I haven't. And then I got the chance to up under the roof. There was a place where I could sleep, and I was so tired, so I simply fell asleep at once. And the next morning we started, and William invited me out in the bush to see the different things there. And we had a good time together. And I didn't talk very much about going to Roskilde. We were trying to get to know each other. And but I felt that it went well. We had well, what happened was that suddenly, after I had been there for 2 or 3 days, then Mary said to me, I would like to go to Roskilde. I told them they should live with me and my family in the same house, and we would take good care of them all the time. And when she said, I would like to go to Roskilde, it could be fun, but William don't want to. And then the day after, William said, I would actually like to go to Roskilde to build a big-back canoe, but Mary don't want. I thought there's something happening now. And then one evening, the whole family was gathered in their house, and they should see when the moon was standing right for travels. And then we decided to go ahead with the project, and if they could come down in April. And that's what they did. And they stayed with me and my family during the whole process, and we became good friends. They had their good friends, the Lafleur family, with them, and they should come help them with the building of the canoe in Roskilde. So after the whole process had been carried through with the building of the canoe, first there was a long time where he was around gathering material for it, and it was all put in big boxes and sent down to us. We had a lot of help from Canadian Airlines. They saw to that we didn't have to pay anything for going to and from Canada and for transportation of the materials. So that was a very big help. So we had a wonderful time in Roskilde building this canoe, and we became very good friends. And it was one funny thing was when at the end of the process of building the bark canoe, Her Majesty the Queen Margaret in Denmark, they found out that she would like to see what was going on in the Viking Ship Museum about this Canadian canoe. And when William arrived, he had 2 trunks with him, and one of them was standing down in our hall, and it was not open at all. But that day he said, I have to go home, you have to drive me home, because there's something I have to do. And when he came home, he opened the trunk, and there was his Indian dress as a chief. And he looked at me and he said, when 2 leaders meet, then they have to be proper dressed. So he got a very beautiful, some very beautiful photos of him and the Queen, with him as the big chief and the Danish Queen, and that was very nice. And he was so astonished that she gave her hand without gloves because he never thought that royalties would do such a thing. But that was fine. So, so it was a very, very good project we had there. And we became friends actually, and I visited them several times in the months after and several years. So it was quite successful, everything. And it was so easy to be with them. Yeah. And they loved our children, my children, and they had a lot to do with the children all the time they were there. William drew them to the kindergarten, actually, and accompanied them into the into the institution, and that was great fun. So we laughed a lot, and we got very good food. That's very important, and had a good time. And Roger Lafleur, he bought a bottle of Canadian whiskey each day. So after we had supper in the evening, then we started drinking whiskey. So that was good. Yes? You better ask me some questions.
Yes, thank you. It was very, very nice to listen to what you have told us so far. I remember that you early on did tell me something about that once William was around one in his family, he did become quite mad, and it was something to do with a tree.
Oh yes, that was one of his grandchildren that had felled a tree and didn't have anything to use it for. He was very conscious about everything, about pollution and to let everything that's alive live. And that was a headline in his way of thinking. Yeah.
Respect for nature.
Yes, very, very much respect for nature, the animals and everything. We took long walks in the bush, and he told me a lot of things, but I've forgotten most of them. It's 40 years ago now. So it's yes, but it's nice to think about it again.
Yeah.
Because it was a very good time.
So how do you remember him as a person?
After this starting shock with glass beds and whiskey, we had a very good time. Yes, and he was so interesting to listen to, and he wanted to do all the best for me while I was there. And I remember especially that there were some hunters living out in the reserve, and he had found out the names Jensen and Hansen was old Danish names. Yeah. And so we saw that there were probably Danes somewhere in the family. So he drew me sometimes 100 kilometers to a place where somebody stayed whose name was Hansen. And they were a little bit surprised, these people, that we arrived. How they say. But it was so fun, and it was so good. So we did everything to get me a good impression of this area, of this reserve where he lived, and that was wonderful. It was an adventure.
So the time where you were with him, did you also meet other relations than his family? You know, I mean, did you meet some of the other Indians in the society, or?
I think it was. Well, I think I met some of the neighbors because I presented them for me, but it was his family mainly. Yes, they were the ones sitting there, finding out when it would be possible to travel. Yeah. And I was so keen on it should be in April, so I was very nervous to hear the decision, and they were discussing it in Algonquin, so I couldn't understand anything. I just was sitting there hoping that they would say April, and then they said April. So yes, I think now it's where it's going to be.
It's so wonderful to listen to this.
Yes.
I remember that earlier on you told me a story about what happened in the airport. You know, you arrived and there was a lady in the airport. First you had to figure out of how to get to Canada.
When I arrived in yes,
yeah.
you know, I've always been such a lucky person. Things just happens, and I got this ticket to Canada from Air Canada, and I phoned in. I think it was a Monday, and they phoned me in the afternoon and said you're going tomorrow. So I became busy getting my things back, and then I flew to Ottawa, to Toronto, and from there to Ottawa, and then they had booked a room for me in a hotel in Ottawa, and then I was to take the bus the next morning to go to Maniwaki. Mm-hmm. And when I was in the airport in Ottawa, when I came out there was a girl sitting crying, and I said to her, what's the problem? Why are you crying? She was sitting all alone, and she said, I was to be picked up here because I'm going to stay here in Ottawa with a family, but they haven't come. And she had been sitting there for quite a while. And I said to her, well, I have nothing to do this evening, so I'll be sitting here with you until something happens. And then there went half an hour or something. Then they came to pick her up. Their car had was
Well, there we have it. There is another documentary that follows on that story, but we'll get to that at another stage in our ongoing work. But it's really interesting. I don't know if our good friend Fran Denis is watching the Facebook Live right now. But the Hanson name makes me remember some of William's friends in Maniwaki, Hansons. Um, One was married to a school teacher who ended up living actually in the Alma area. But anyway, Fran and I went on Whitewater Rapid a trip up the Gatineau a few years ago. And at the lunch afterwards in the park out there, we met a young man, and he knew me. He recognized me, and he had actually come to our Circle of All Nations gatherings, and so that's how he knew us. Worked out that he was the grandson of the Hansons. So the Hansons were an important thread in the William Commander story, and of course, most people who know William know that he introduced everybody to everybody else, and that's how his circle grew and grew and grew. So, Winnie, thank you for, in the strange way, becoming a part of our lives and a part of our story and a part of William Commander's ongoing story. We look forward to sharing more in the future. Now, I am going. Oh, let me just see what else was I going to say over here. I think we already pretty well covered that. I introduced her pretty well. I'm going to backtrack now to see if I can find Gracella, who I am supposed to be Skyping. So let me see if that will work. Hello.
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 How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for your patience and
It's very nice to see you again and to be in touch with all my people there also. Very, I am.
okay. I see somebody tucked in beside you over there.
Yes, dice que te está viendo que está. Yes, yes. They are helping me with the computer.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, but remember that the signal here is not exactly perfect. So, okay, you
Okay.
hear me well?
I can hear you very clearly, but when I talk, I hear an echo. But well, I won't talk very much. I'm just going to go back to my play, uh, my PowerPoint presentation, and show people that you and your
No.
sister.
System.
Should we? Gracella, I'm going to hang up and try again.
Okay, va a colgar.
Hi.
Okay, we must try. You hear me well now?
Yes, I can hear you well. So you can tell us about how you met us and what you are doing, and I'll keep quiet.
Okay. We have. Hello.
Hello? Um,
Okay.
you, the, the alternative is that I call you on WhatsApp and we just talk,
Okay.
because
Okay.
now maybe
Bueno.
people have seen you
Okay.
and we might have better
It's,
reception.
here is very difficult to hear you because I have echo also, and it makes many confusion to
Okay.
hear correctly. But I understand your question. So since 2008, since 2008, we no,
Yes, I can hear you.
excuse me, you have some video open or something like that that is making perhaps.
Um, no, not any video. It's just that I've got a lot of technology working at the same time because we're on
Okay,
Facebook.
okay. Uh, we have the blessing from the Creator to meet grandfather William Commander and you, my dear friend Romola. We were in Canada in 2008, and we have the pleasure to be together in a big conference and after in his house. You hear me
Yes,
correctly?
I can hear you very well. Good.
Está muy bajo. No escucho nada. ¿Por qué no sacas la grabación de acá? Okay. And, uh, and since that moment, we were together also in 2010 and have many blessing experiences with grandfather William Commander. He blessed also in my Chanupa, and it was very important for us to have the opportunity. He showed us the bed, and it was a very particular um, circumstance that we never will forget that, because it was really very important for our lives. We hear very clearly all the story of his life and how was the process of the human right about the indigenous people also in Canada. And I always remember that he was one of the first chief indigenous that was invited by the Queen of England to be in the UN, because particularly the foundation that I lead is one of the most important foundation that works in Argentina with United Nations. We are one of the ones that has more recognition about United Nations. My organization is an NGO, the foundation that calls Fundación Argentina de Naciones Camino a la Verdad, and we work with United Nations since 1999 in the defense of human rights of several communities, and in particularly in all the things that are related with indigenous people in all America, not only Canada, also in Mexico and in different countries. And we have the opportunity to defend the human rights of all the people uh, because it's one of our priorities. At the same time, in this moment, uh, since 2017, I was appointed by the United Nations by the Executive Committee of um, the DPI, the Department of Information, like regional coordinator for Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and last January I was appointed as regional coordinator for all America, from Canada to Tierra del Fuego. So it's a pleasure for me to have this moment the opportunity to share with you and all the people that is in this meeting the opportunity to share the priorities that have the executive committee, the global executive committee of NGOs, where I am the regional coordinator, to invite all of you to have the opportunity to write the proposal that you can have, uh, and I can present all of that in the United Nations in the Global Committee, because it's very important to hear what happened with all of you, with the people of Canada, of course, or whatever you are affected in this moment. Excuse me if my English is not perfect, but the idea is to know what happened with all the community um, in relation with the COVID-19, and also which are the measures that you take uh, to to face this situation that is terrible all around the world. It's very important, and I want to open to all of you uh, not only the opportunity to have the presentation of your organizations in United Nations, but also I open my heart to help in everything that our organization can offer all of you. Romola is my sister by heart, and I really want to help in the direction of the things that I know that are happening all around the world. You know, it's very important because there are five things that are very, very important. All this situation of crisis and all this situation of the climate change and the different moral and ethical crisis that surrounding the world in this moment, it goes against our environment. And because of that, we don't have the freedom to manage all the natural resources in the same way. And because of that, many people just move from one country to other. It calls immigration, go inside one country and it calls displaced. And this situation is not good because in several countries it has this balance in relation with the economical affairs. So it makes that many people have reaction of discrimination, a xenophobe, and in, included slaveries and go against the woman, the child. So because of this situation, I want to open our organization also uh, to help if you want to present something at the United Nations as declaration. For example, if you have some idea that could be for the development of the culture, because you know that in this moment in the United Nations we have 17 eh? CDH, that SDG that calls the 70 objectives of the goals that United Nations have to defend the community, the international community against the poverty and the gender, climate change, the natural resources, how to be efficient cities, and exactly to do a good alliance between several organizations for justice, for peace, you know. And so it's very important which are the things that you believe can help to international organization of United Nations that it could be present like ideas because it's very, very important because they have the most high status that is possible to have in United Nations that we call um, the consultative status before the episode that is the Council Economic and Social Affairs. So we can present there, but the most important thing that you have the opportunity to work is with the Executive Committee of the Department of Global Information because in some way it's part of the team of the Secretary General. So you have the open door to the path to be associated. The Department of Global Information is very important because really in this committee we hear very well our submissions, our suggestions, and it's very important, to do that. So I command, I give you, Romola, uh, my my situation in relation with the Department of Global Communication, some organizations that are in touch with you want to present some suggestions or proposal. Uh, you can manage that and put in touch with us uh, to help also our community in Canada. Okay?
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much for sharing all of that. Um, I'm going
Uh,
to tell people a little bit more about our relationship with you. You know, when we went to the United Nations COP17 conference in South Africa, and we represented your organization, Circle of All Nations, and the Indigenous voice. And, and I will share with people some reports from that time. You have taken our advocacy for indigenous centered forward at the United Nations level. You've opened doors for us to also participate. Unfortunately, not able to do as much as we can. But I'm also going to read uh, uh, the uh, the document we shared last December for the United Nations for the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, and also for the voice of indigenous people. And you have helped us take that seed of work to the UN level. So we very much appreciate the support and the collaboration, and we look forward to carrying on.
but also, exactly.
I'm remembering too when we Skyped one time with your father, grandfather Skyped with some indigenous elders. So oh
Yes, we were two things. I remember very well when I was speaker in the legislature. Yes, with my father and grandfather. William. Yes, yes.
um,
It was very, very fabulous connection because in that time my father and grandfather William Commander became very good grandfathers and was really the best of the creator that connection. I remember very, very well. And I have some photos of that moment also. Situation is that I am not in this moment in Buenos Aires because of the and here in my here the city of Mar del Plata. So I don't have uh, opportunity of show you this photo. And also important that you must remember that we have the opportunity also when you make a declaration with grandfather William Commander and also another communities of all America of indigenous people, and we present a document at United Nations with different proposal, and it was very well received by the Nation. And after that, the conference, the first conference, indigenous people of the United Nations. And I remember that if I invite you also come there. And I think it was in two, 2014, something like that. And we bring several chiefs from all America. We invite them. They came they come inside your next nation. Oh, yes.
yes.
And, and also it was very important to all of us to be together. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanna just show everybody this ring.
Okay.
Do you
And
remember?
that is
The,
dinero, dinero.
can you see this?
Decirle,
It's the ring with the moving circle that you gave me many years ago for the connection with Circle of All Nations to keep moving, to keep moving.
yes, yes. We make a
Yeah.
spiritual event. Yes,
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me.
yes.
I'm going to read our last text
Many,
to
many years.
yes, and love to
More than 10. More than 10 years.
more than 10
More
years.
than 10 years.
Well,
And since that moment, we never separate. We love you.
I,
And
I love you and love to all the colleagues, and that's really what we wanna show people. It's the relationship. Mwah, Adriana, hello,
here is a hello, Romola.
hello, I love
I
you.
love you forever.
Oh, yeah, so great to see you. So we look forward to meeting again with COVID
Jimmy
over.
Witch.
Miigwech, miigwech.
Yes.
Okay, till the next time. Bye bye. Bye. Bye.
The Creator bless you.
Yes. Well, those are our very special friends. That's uh, the team visiting us at a gathering in Maniwaki. I think that might have been 2008. And as Gracella has suggested, Dr. Gracella Janowski, over the years we have continued to engage and do work together. And as you know, our efforts are very much grassroots, and it's been very helpful to us to have colleagues that we've developed strong relationships with to help build knowledge, bring new threads of information into the energy shifting um, needs of the world, the energy shifting ideas of the world. And I want to just read this to you before I move on to our next guest. It's part of a William Commander Circle of All Nations aspirational mantra articulated in 2000, and it was initially released consistent with the United Nations Declaration on a Decade for a Culture of Peace. Of course, we had 9/11 after that, and that slow tracked the world's move towards peace. But the circle message continues to be as relevant 20 years ago as it is today. But now I'm just going to read to you a reiteration of those aspirational goals in the inclusive legacy work, uh, partly because this is work we also initiated with our friends at Fancyev and took forward the statement to the United Nations. And it affirms our commitment to Jinawe Daganuk interrelationship, a living Gaia, and global connection. So here we said, consistent with its grounding belief in a culture of inclusion, Circle of All Nations recognizes indigenous peoples as the elder sibling and affirms that respectful relations with First Peoples across the globe is the most critically important responsibility of leadership. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples holds provisions on internal self determination which situate indigenous rights on a jurisdictional level, maintaining and extending these rights through varied indigenous legal traditions and creating sovereignty within various indigenous nations and others. It is affirmed that indigenous knowledge is increasingly important for the maintenance and sustainability of all life on Earth in times declared the age of the Anthropocene. Emergent with this principle is the recognition of the innate human biotic relationship of the living, intelligent Gaia, which is mediated by the interrelated laws of nature, the principal ones governing fire, earth, water, and wind, which key elements are essential for all life. There are multiple ways to understand and negotiate the human relationship with Earth. Indigenous, experiential, and intangible approaches to knowledge acquisition and knowledge generation is of critical importance in these times of dramatic climate change, extreme weather, and apparent acceleration of evolutionary processes. Emergent from the Algonquin word used regularly by late Indigenous elder William Commander, Jinawe Daganuk, all is interrelated, is a philosophy that embraces diversity in a vast multiplicity of forms as the necessary reality of life on earth. And it encourages deep respect for all people and a celebration of different gifts, knowledge, and understandings. The current environmental and human crises demand concerted bridge building to co create a global future that holds a place for all. The United Nations Social Development Goals draw attention to the global community to the dire needs of major segments of the human family, including in the context of accelerating environmental crises. Thus, all are urged to create ways to become a circle of all nations, a culture of peace. Let me now move on to our next guest. And here we have a passion for wampum storytelling coming to us via our connection with our friend Sarah Lucero, who we just recently reconnected with uh, in the context of our last Facebook Live video event. So let me now see how easily I am going to find her. Here we are. Oh, I got some advice, but yeah, it's a bit late for that. I think my computer is old. I think I need a new computer, and it's developing a hum header. Thanks for watching. Let me now see if I can call Sarah.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very, very good. I'm sorry we kept you waiting a little while, I think, but
Oh, that's okay. And hello, brothers and sisters of the Four Directions. Hello, everybody.
hello, great to see you here. I see we have some friends watching on Facebook, so they'll be hearing you. And in
Yes.
addition, this will be a live video that will be available on our Circle of All Nations Facebook page, so people will be able to go back to the message and the sharing. So, there we go. I'm just setting up the stage properly so we can see you well. And yeah, tell us now. It's been quite a few years since we first met you. Can you hear me okay?
I can, but I'm hearing an echo. Are you hearing an echo on your end?
I'm hearing some other voice, not so much an echo. Um,
Let's see. Let me turn. Hold on just a second. Let me turn my phone off. Okay.
oh, no, I can actually hear you. I can hear other people. So it's some other line coming through. And I don't see that we have anything else on ourselves. Shall I just try to
Can you
call you
call me
back?
back?
Yeah,
Maybe we have a bad connection.
sure.
Okay. Is that better?
No, I seem to be picking up something along the airwaves. You know what? Everybody has seen you. What I'm going to do is call you back without the video, and we'll see if that works better.
Okay.
Sorry, unless you want to try and call
Okay, now
me.
I can hear you.
Do you want to try and call me? Maybe
Yeah.
we'll get a better connection.
Okay.
Okay. We'll just see if that works any better. But Sarah came to find Grandfather Commander many years ago because she has a passionate interest in wampum and had been doing her own work, both tracking history and retelling wampum stories from her knowledge base. Now, let me see. Is that coming? Coming through. It's funny, if we were actually doing a live gathering, we would have a coffee break, we would chat with people, and here I see a message from our last friend, but we'll take care of that later. Um, I don't see that anything is coming through, but you get anxious when you're on live like this because you want the momentum of things to keep moving. Um, I'll give her a few seconds to see if she does get on board. Um, but here, I'll tell you then, our special guest is from New Mexico. She came to share wampum passion with Grandfather Commander more than a decade ago. She also brought us a documentary on Chaco Canyon. And as many of you may know, Dr. Brian Cox, foremost scientist who does these amazing shows about the galaxy and about the cosmic world, really, um, and talks all the time about time and place convergence in the knowledge of the solar and lunar eclipses. He affirmed that when he was a child, he was inspired by what he learned about Chaco Canyon, because then he realized that there were people in that part of the world who understood the cosmic, who understood the solar and lunar cycles. And in their petroglyphs, in their pictographs, there was affirmation of this knowledge of the ancient ones. So Sarah brought us a documentary on the Chaco Canyon. We had actually already been tracking that story because it's the most fascinating one. And so those are the two threads of our connection with her. And again, the equinox is a particularly special moment because, of course, the equinox and the solstice are marked in the rocks at Chaco Canyon, showing the ancient knowledge of the indigenous peoples of the most important cosmic cycles. So let me try her again since she is not calling. Okay, that is
Okay.
okay. Why don't you share what you like, and I'll keep quiet, and we'll just listen to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's better. I can hear you. I don't hear an echo.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, everyone from Brothers and Sisters in the Four Directions. I still hear like a delayed message, delayed reaction here, so I'll just talk and I'll tell everyone how I met Elder Chief Commando.
Okay.
So in my work as a wampum bell keeper for Shawnee Chief Tecumseh, I met a Pueblo man who I was doing work with the corn. We were growing corn together, and his name is Clayton Barscape. And I probably am not pronouncing his name correctly because his name is French. He's of French descent, part French descent. And I was speaking with Romola about that. And he told me about Chief William Commanda at the time, and I thought about making a trip to meet him. And I'm sorry that I might not be articulating my words correctly because of this delayed reaction here. But what I did was I called the University of Ottawa and I spoke with someone in the Indigenous culture section, and they gave me William Comanda's phone number, and I called and made an appointment with him to speak with him. And I told him that I was the wampum bell keeper for Chief Tecumseh, and I told him that I held several belts for him, and in particular, I was interested in the fire belts that we both held. And I told him that I was from New Mexico, and we had a really nice conversation. And then we got into the conversation about Chaco Canyon, and he told me about his interest in Chaco Canyon, and we also talked about our common interest in our friend and sacred elder who we both had an affinity for, and his name was Chief Dan Bahima, who was Hopi. So we had a lot of common interests. And so I asked him if I could make a journey to Ottawa and go meet him so we could discuss important issues that we both held in common about the belts. I told him I had 5 belts, and so I spoke with him and with Romola, and we made an agreement, and so I journeyed to Ottawa in May of 2007. So when I went down there, Chief Commanda took out his belts and I took out mine, and we discussed the commonalities of his belts and of mine, and we did a little ceremony. We blessed our belts, and we talked about our fire belts. And what I thought was very interesting is that we both had our belts that were very significant as far as I saw this as fires coming together from different directions. Here I come from the United States from the west, and he's in Canada in the north, and his mission was to unite and bring unity. And here I come from, the west, and I thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice if, wampum bell keepers from all directions would come together, and we could bring all our belts together and have this, united, common
meeting of all Wampum Belt keepers, and we would share all of our prophecies, and that we could share it with all peoples all over the world. And that was a really nice idea, and we talked about that. And so that was one thing we talked about. We also talked about healing, for people all over the world, especially for residential schooling, that era with what happened with those people. And we just talked about an array of issues, that were occurring. And I'm really sorry that I may not be articulating my words correctly because of this delayed reaction here. But I also told him that I was really interested in the astronomical or astrology components of our fire belts, because I see that there are triune, geometric symbolisms in our fire belts, because when there's a triune that is created in the planetary, I would say, symbolisms in the universe at certain times, especially during the equinox times of the year, and when there's a grand triune, it'll create a double diamond, and that has a significance in our fire belts, because when they're double, it makes a triangle. And I see that in our fire belts. And I told him, because of our Puebloan, Chacoan, connection, and being a descendant of Pueblo people, our structures were perfectly aligned with the solstice and equinox time of the year, with the sun and the moon. And the holy people knew how to construct the great houses and all of the kubas with the exact time of the sun and the moon, the lunar and equinox, and solstice times of the year. But I thought, they were also geophysicists. They were astronomers. They were, in those times, they were very advanced for them to pick what I call the cradle of civilization, to be so advanced to create, a beautiful place where it was just, advanced enough for them to create such a place for us to go and to be able to mark the solstice times of the year, where they would carve things such as a sun dagger, this swirl of the energy that would mark the time and day of the solstice and equinox times of the year. And I had it on my phone. Hold on. I have a picture on my phone. I don't know how many of you I don't know how many of you know about Chocolate Canyon, but there's a sun dagger. It's a swirl that is carved in the rocks. It's like, and it's a swirl of energy. And there's a sun dagger, a dagger of light in between the rocks, and it shows the sunlight. It'll show a dagger when it's the middle of day, and it'll show the equinox time of the year, or solstice time of the year. And all of the different Puebloan structures, like Pueblo Bonito, Casa Riconada, those two are perfectly aligned with the north and south directions, and the different other structures are aligned with the east, west part of the structures. there are several great houses that are, you know, within Chaco Canyon, and they're all aligned to each other. It's like the universe, okay? All the stars are aligned with each other, like the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. Well, all these great houses are aligned with each other in the earth according to the universe and the stars. You would have to come and see that. But what I want to share with you guys today, as far as the fire belts are concerned, this is a picture of, I don't know if you guys can see it, but can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, this is what it looks like inside the kiva, okay? Inside the structures of the pueblos, this one in particular is Pueblo Bonito,
Okay.
okay? These um these are little mosaic pieces,
Okay.
okay? This is how the structures were made, okay? And it's in a round, okay, the kivas were round, okay? But what I wanted to point out were the diamonds,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
You see the diamonds in the Seven Fires belt,
Yeah.
okay? And you see the diamonds in my belt, in Tecumseh's fire belt, okay?
Okay.
So you see these three fires, okay? Well, okay, when this kiva was first created, okay, these diamonds were not part of that when it was first created. It was created later on, and our ancestors don't know why, but later on in time they were added. So I feel maybe it was some astronomical event that happened that they were added in there. So I feel like it must have been some
Wow.
sort of event that occurred. But like now, okay, we had a super moon. So we have, it created a triune, okay? So now we have three planets that are aligned together. It's Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn that are creating a triune. We don't have a double triune. So I'm figuring that when these were added, it had to be a grand triune that that created this triangle here. So I'm figuring in our fire belts, we had to have a grand triune at the time that those belts were created. So I was talking to Chief Commander and I asked him, do you know the history of maybe when that belt was created and what the astronomical information was about it? I'm very, interested in that, and maybe it's just my Chacoan, ancestry and wanting to know about that, scientific part of it, but I feel that that is very interesting. Also, I wanted to share with you all another picture that I took. This is at Crows Canyon. This is near Chaco Canyon. I'm going to show it to you a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, this is another art carving of, this is what they call the Navajo warrior twin panel carving. I thought this was pretty interesting because what I saw was another fire. I don't know if you could see it here. You
Yeah.
could see the diamonds. Can you see the diamonds
Yeah.
within? You could see the diamonds here,
Yeah.
right here.
Mm-hmm.
And then these white ones, you could see the white in between.
Right.
Okay, so in our history with the Navajo warrior twins is that one was called Born for Water, and the other twin was called Dragon Slayer.
Okay.
And so I believe that the middle fire that's dark,
Yeah.
the dark, that's the fire that's Dragon Slayer, and these diamonds here are the water. That's Born for Water.
Okay.
So see how that makes a diamond pattern?
Yeah.
So this is Born for Water, Dragon Slayer. Born for Water, Dragon Slayer.
Okay.
Here's Dragon Slayer. That's his. Those are his arrows. There's 7. And here's Born for Water. Born for Water was like the medicine person, and Dragon Slayer was the warrior. So
Okay.
here again, we see the diamond pattern, but this one is water. This one is fire. So depending on the triune, okay, and the planetary confinements,
Okay.
if all 3 were in earth and, or all 3 were in fire, then if all 3 elements were in earth and all 3 were in fire or all 3 were in water, that created a triune or
Okay.
a grand triune. So I'm just saying, as far as astronomical events that happen would have created these fires. So I'm trying to, in my work, investigate that, you
Okay.
know. So these go way back in time. The Navajo believe that, the Navajo warrior twins were their first warriors ever recorded because they go way back to their creation story. So I think that that's very interesting, you know, and that's what I saw in this as far as fires, that fire connection.
Okay. Okay. Wow, that's very fascinating and really, really intriguing from multiple levels because, in fact, what we position as the grandfather commander way of knowing is cosmic knowledge, inspiring and impacting the trajectory to understanding anything. And
Right.
one time we met Navajo elder uh, Martin Martinez, grandfather Martinez,
Yes. Uh-huh.
and it wasn't a beaded wampum, but in fact, his storytelling was through that kind of oral tradition of the imagery and the messages that were coded for him into something that was also there in song that signified these big cosmic things, including, of course, the equinox, the solstice, and the eclipses. So yeah, and when grandfather turned 90, it was interesting because there were 6 of these cosmic bodies lined up in the stars at a certain point. And of course, with the 7 fires prophecy, I don't know whether you were listening to us earlier today,
Yes, I was. Uh-huh.
but uh, there is some thought around the diamonds and the potential for shifting of energies, which really I was saying earlier, grandfather didn't see manifest during his lifetime, and in fact, I just think what I shared about Isaias and
Yes,
the
it is.
storm is pretty intriguing. I was surprised that I shared it, but it just seemed like it was the moment to do so because it's hard to tell how much more urgent life can become before we see some changes. But anyway, I hear the noise starting again. So let us say goodbye. Thank you very much for sharing. And we'll
Okay,
perhaps
you're
have
welcome.
another conversation like this just on this topic in the future.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Any final
Okay.
words? Any final words? It's good?
Oh, yes. Yes. And I just want to thank you for the book.
Okay. Lovely.
I, I teach a lot from this book. Thank you so, so much.
Oh, well, wonderful. You know what? I'm doing an informal course teaching from that book right now myself. And I just begin to realize it is so deep with the significance, and particularly in this storytelling way where you can go deeper and deeper uh, to understand things. And when you mentioned Charcot, of course, before you actually came on again the second time, I was saying one of the folk that we like to watch is this scientist, Dr. Brian Cox, who tells
Yes.
amazing stories about the universe. But one of his earliest stories is about, as a child, how he was fascinated by the Charcot story because he realized that it was the indigenous peoples who was wakening his mind up to the significance of the elements of the cosmic bodies, and to our understanding of life on earth. And again, it's the indigenous thread that we are trying to do, to recreate as live for people through that kindergarten dropout book, because we don't believe it is well understood and well respected as it ought to be. And in critical times like this, glad to see the voice bringing it forward. So thank you so much, Sarah.
I just want to share this with you.
Oh, yes, indeed. There you are. That's there in Canada, too. And I have a photo posted on my Facebook of several of your belts right on the table. And I actually find it so fascinating that your Shako belt has elephants, who, for me, are the knowledge carriers of ancient times, but they're also the energy for movement. We were talking earlier about the canoe for movement, the horse for movement, but
Yes.
of course in Africa, it's the elephant who carries the
Elephants.
memory of everything and marks the pathway, and in that way to the water. So, the matriarch elephant um, takes people to the water. It breaks up the earth so that plants can grow, so that life can come. So it's very important to us. And of course, I imagine it must have been something that drew you to it too.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And it was a pleasure meeting everyone. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to go visit with you and for being so gracious and with your time, taking us all over and to everyone here. I'm sorry that I may not be articulating myself correctly, but I'm hearing that delayed reaction again.
Yeah.
But thank you for taking your time for this presentation. I enjoyed every minute of it, and sending you blessings from here from the Southwest. And I do want to say a little something. Grandfather Commander was here this morning. He woke me up very early. I could hear crows all morning long cawing,
Wow.
all morning long. So
Well,
I know it was him.
okay.
The
Well,
thunder sticks,
that
right?
a guy is too busy. He woke up our friend in Denmark. When she was going on a walk someplace, he sent her someplace else. He does sort of strange things, eh? Other ways of knowing. Well, I'm glad he
Yes.
woke you up, and thank you so much for sharing. And we'll talk again.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Okay, let me put that aside. Okay, well, thank you, Sarah, for joining us and sharing with us today. That was pretty special too, to be reminded of that cosmic knowledge of the Pueblo ancestors. Um, okay, and it's already 4:45, so now let me just fast forward to the main business of the day. Well, we've talked a little bit about sustainable relationships. We've done workshops on this in this regard. Um, and we talked a little bit earlier about the East Coast unrest underway at this precise moment, the Marshall decision, and of course, the Marshall decision and our story about the environment is linked with the other nomad, the American eel. And here I have a video clip an audio clip that has Grandfather Commander talking about the American eel. But I'm not going to play that right now because I want to move on to our peace portion of the agenda. But I'm mentioning it to you because it is part of this PowerPoint that is included with this live video recording. But I want to say so earlier we talked about the need for peace, the oppression of the indigenous peoples, the 500-year history that needs to be transformed. We've also talked about the environmental challenges, the environmental crises that are impacting our lives. And just the other day, I watched two very important, interesting documentaries. One was called My Octopus Teacher, and it's a Netflix documentary with a Craig Foster, a filmmaker who dives into the cold Atlantic Ocean right there at Cape Town and encounters an octopus. And over the course of the year, the octopus guides him to a deep, deep, and profound relationship with nature, with Mother Earth. And as he acknowledges in the beginning of that documentary, it was the indigenous peoples from the Kalahari who opened his eyes to this way of understanding life. And this is, in fact, what we are trying to do with our Circle of All Nations work. We are trying to bridge between the indigenous, between the grassroots, between organizations, between government and the academy to create a way of understanding that is more powerful to respond to the crises and challenges, unspeakable challenges of our times. So that documentary, My Octopus Teacher, was really, really very inspiring. But then it was followed by another one called Blue, and it's a filmmaker who is now studying the human impact on the oceans, from the big sea fishing, the trawlers that actually utilize all those satellites that are floating around there now as the rest of the world tries to catch up with the cosmic knowledge of the Shakok people. As those satellites identify where schools of fish are, big gaming trawlers use mechanical fishing nets to capture all the fish so that there are no fish left to breed. There are no young fish growing up. The big matriarchs and the fish families are destroyed. This documentary captures this. It shows the impact of our abuse of the oceans and our abuse of the environment and our use of plastics on the kind of food that seabirds are eating. And it points to the plastic in the bellies of these little baby birds. Just right now, all of you ought to be aware that birds are falling out of the sky in the Midwest and dying. And grandfather used to say, you know, when the birds go, we know we're living in really, really drastic times. This documentary, Blue, also identifies many other stories that both show the abuse of the oceans but also show the workers who are trying to transform things. And that's where I say, even though everything always seems like it's worsening, which it is in fact, still the grandfather commander way would be to be moving in the direction of hope. And those two documentaries made me think a lot about those two topics. Do we give up as COVID impacts our lives, or do we try to find better ways of meeting the challenges? And I really mean we need to find better and different ways of addressing the issues. Um, right now, you've probably also heard about the microplastics, and the geoplankton are now consuming the microplastics that are in the oceans, and the building blocks of life are now being transformed. It's not happening in the future, it's happening right now, hence the urgency of the times. Okay, so now over to the other part of our agenda. We used to do the Paddle for Peace events at Victoria Island, Chowdhury Island, partly because we felt that there could be no peace building consistent with the hopes of the United Nations September 21st International Day for Peace without environmental stewardship and a huge new respect for the environment, not the ongoing exploitation of the environment. And we thought the motif of a paddle on the waters, a movement, a journey on the waters, but a paddle for peace would be the energy to move. Unfortunately, we were stopped from continuing with that amazing activity at Victoria Island, and so some of that continues just in our work in an enigmatic, symbolic way. Um, I am now wanting to go to an interview that our good friend Jean Trudel uh, created with grandfather, and he came and visited him in Maniwaki in 2005. This is after grandfather was stranded in South Africa when 9/11 happened, and that was just a couple of weeks ago, the 19th anniversary of that uh, horrendous and globally life transforming event. And grandfather's words, even at that point in his citizen interview, was make peace, not war. And he presented at that point a vision of love. Jean Trudel came and met grandfather, I think in 2005, and interviewed him about peace. And that inspired his own work to create the Cirque de Paix and to take messages to the United Nations such that grandfather's colleagues animated the new revived um, agenda for peace at the United Nations. Our friends Betsy Stang, Jim Davis.
Grandfather, we're set. It's recording. Tell us about your work with Culture of Peace since the Decade of Peace in 2000 with the United Nations.
Yeah.
You decided to start working and let people know about your culture of peace as well.
Very much, because I was talking about getting all colors of people. That's why we started Circle of All Nations. We have black people here, Chinese, Japanese, Mexicans, Algonquins, and anyone that wants to come. Everybody's welcome. As you know, we organized this year. Nobody is charged to camp. We feed them. It's free. We'll spend a week here and just bring your tent, and it doesn't cost you nothing. So it's coming more and more today to be more peace, and I'm glad to see that. As long as I be able to do it, it's going to happen. I know for a fact it will happen someday. It will happen someday because our ancestors, the grandmothers, long time ago in 1700s, they have these predictions. Someday you'll see that people, they were reborn inside Indian body, not knowing what's happening. Someday they will be born, these people, inside the Indian bodies, and they will be called rainbow people. Today, there's lots of that today, and they're helping the Indians, to organize. There's hope everything that they do with us, because I think they were saying that time, the grandmothers had said that they will be the people that will transform their own government by talking to them themselves, their chiefs, the way chiefs will be transformed by them. And I believe that.
Now, your brothers in California celebrate Aboriginal Day on September 14th. Do you have a special message for their celebration over there? What do you want to tell them? You want to greet them and say hello?
Yes, I want to light my pipe for them. I don't know what hour they start. I suppose in the morning sometime they must have a sunrise ceremony or something. And I would like to know the hour so I could smoke my pipe at the same time.
Thank
yes,
you.
and for them, together is always possible. We won't achieve to do good things. I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in going to smash the windows in Ottawa, in Parliament, or throw bombs on it. That's not the way to live. Tell the truth. Tell them the truth and love them anyway. You have to respect them. Someday they will understand you.
Now, September 21st is International Day of Peace. Can you tell us about September 21st and what it means for you?
Ini Johnson on is Kinamo walk with Pejik in the Hospital. She can't get what you know. We can never the Benjikins. We can never get women. We can never the bend and can get it. She may West no more touching our I would like to remind always my young people, my young brothers, my young sisters, every day in our life while we live. Always thank the Creator for all the things He grants us, to give us life, give us health, and also to help our children to be able to speak the language and to talk about these things between themselves in a good way, not to plan the bad things, just to plan good ways to teach each other, and then whatever it is, to work together. Give me words.
Thank you, Jean. I'm going to just try to see if Jean is available. And see if he'd like to say a word to us. Let me try. I'm not sure he's around, but Okay, I don't think he's around, so we'll skip that intention. It would have been really nice because we would have had a French voice to add to the conversation. As you know, grandfather talked just now in Algonquin, and he always liked to speak in Algonquin, translate himself into English, translate himself into French, so that he would be well understood by all his friends and all his colleagues. And of course, a huge part of his gang are actually there in Quebec and would probably very much appreciate avoir la conversation dans le français. Mais je manquais la confiance de parler le français bien et euh, donc c'est difficile pour moi de partager comme Danny William. Mais merci de tous les amis de Québec pour le soutien de travail de William Commanda dans plusieurs années passées. Okay, so now I am just going to see, not there, I suppose. I saw Heather say something. I see. And I'm not sure whether there are other people who are interested in chatting. And I don't know whether I should be seeing a circle chat stream. Okay, so people, if you're interested in talking or sharing anything with us, then I'm gonna invite you to call me. Okay, that would be the way to do it. So please feel free to call me. I know the first time I did this video chat, I could see the conversations happening, and therefore it was able to track who was around and respond to queries. At this stage, I don't even know if we're being properly recorded, but oh well. Sarah affirmed that we were. So yeah, so there we go. Now, while I wait to see if anybody is going to call me, I am actually going to go to this uh, slide in our presentation. And, well, together with 9/11 and in the midnight of 9/11, September, we got to notice that our latest article, academic article on Grandfather Commanda and his Circle of All Nations discourse, was published by the International Journal on Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. So, after many years of studying, we like to say we are finally also becoming academic. We're not just so much grassroots in our knowledge. And this article is the fourth in a series of several articles where we're exploring grandfather's style of communications, his cybernetic reach, and so it was special that uh, um, with 9/11 came this publication on the discourse. This paper uses a Foucauldian discourse analysis lens to examine the discourse, cybernetic mapping, and spatial and temporal reach of William Commanda and his informal bridge building Circle of All Nations global eco peace community. And it queries its relevance to academic study of environmental and social justice relational issues during this age of the Anthropocene and times of climate change, extreme weather, unprecedented extinction of species, systemic and overt racism, violence, global pandemic, and social upheaval across the globe. It explores the nature and relevance of his discourse, inclusive of the Seven Fires prophecy, which anticipated times of unprecedented and global crisis embedded in the ancient mnemonic wampum belt of the 1400s. William Commander was born in 1913 on the eve of the First World War. It is ironic that the Isaias hurricane, tornadoes, and flooding were unleashed on August 3rd, 9 years after his death, in a world on fire at multiple levels, and one hurtling on an evolutionary trajectory of unforeseeable change and challenge. Wow, I see that we also mentioned Isaias in that academic article. I hadn't remembered that. Anyway, here you are. You have a link to that paper. It's on open source, open access academic publication, and it is also, interestingly enough, now part of the Index of Copernicus. We have stories about Copernicus, so we'll talk more about that at some other stage. But anyway, so there we go. We hope we are beginning to bridge between indigenous, grassroots organizations, governments, and academia, and animating our Circle of All Nations work. A big prayer for everybody's safety and strong physical and mental health and courage during these times of change. You see there the image of Yoshi, our Circle of All Nations 2020 migrating turtle, hiding the untidy desktop that I have, but also symbolizing the ongoing journey, the ongoing prayer for life and hope. And now I'm going to assume nobody else is wanting to chat, and I am going to end by replaying the Save Us musical theme created for COP17 in 2011, just a few months after actually 4 people who were really important to me died. My aunt, then Madhrama, who had taken care of us when I was young, then Grandfather Commander, and then finally my mother. 4 people, we lost 4 people who were very close to me in 6 months. And then was the COP conference, the regeneration of animation for protection of Mother Earth, and Jade created this musical video, a very young lyricist and musician. And when I look at the images today, the images I cut you off earlier, and see how prescient they were in anticipating the challenges of our times today. May we all find hope and energy to build a better world together. Miigwech for joining us, and take good care.
Spirit floating from the land, illuminating the earth by rain.
Save nature.
Oh, good heavens. I now find the comment bar. So, are there any folk out there who would still like to say anything? Gosh, Sandra, Patricia, Kathy, Sandra, uh, uh, Peter, Emily, Heather. Wow, Martha, Martha, hi. Peter, Delphina. Oh, I see we've had loads of friends out there. I'm going to just give you guys a few more minutes in case any of you want to say anything. I see had Jean, we missed him. Uh, Andrea, I hope you're doing well with your health. Scott, oh my goodness. Scott Ketchen, who walked on Sunway 5 with the grandfather and gang. Maru, hi there. Winnie, of course, Denmark. Jason, hi Jason from Toronto. Emily, Petra, Sotepe, Emily, Fanciev. So I didn't know you guys do Facebook. We could have actually talked to Dr. Gracela Janowski via Facebook, and we might have had a better connection with Argentina. But nonetheless, we did go global. So yeah, well, thank you guys for connecting here. Um, we'll hope to see you all next time, and that will be Remembrance Day, November 11th. And I shall basically, I think, keep to doing a PowerPoint presentation on grandfather and then uh, encourage a conversation. So let us say grandfather's buddies will actually take to the air. With this work, you know, what I'm doing is basically returning everything to the grassroots before we actually pass it on to other folk. And so I'm glad you're out there. Miigwech, take good care. Bye.